morning. Good morning, everyone. We'll give you another minute to make sure people are connected by audio. Feel free to put your videos on for a moment while we get started so we can see your beautiful faces. All right, so welcome to Sustainable CT's webinar on managing woodlands and urban forests. We have some experts from Department of Energy and Environmental Protection with us today to share resources on forest management, forest and woodland management. This coincides with Sustainable CT Action 3.9 and will provide helpful resources for you all in both managing your forests and making the world a better place and earning points towards certification. Hey, wait, before I keep going, let me do a quick introductions. I'm Lynn Stoddard, Executive Director of Sustainable CT. Good to see you all, your names and your faces. Like to just quickly introduce the other members of our team. Torin, you wanted to say hey?
Morning, folks. Torin Radiccioni here, Program Assistant for Sustainable CT. Glad you all can make it.
And Nicole is our newest team member. She started yesterday. Not to put you on the spot, but would you like to just say hello, Nicole?
Yeah, hi, good morning. Nice to see you all this morning.
Great. So I'll introduce Danica and Dave in a minute. I just wanted to start with a really quick overview. I'm going to share my slides, a couple of slides here to give you the context. Again, you're all familiar, I think, with Sustainable CT. It's a roadmap of actions, resources to help you complete the actions, and certification. Simple to join. You pass a resolution, it's free to towns, and then work towards certification by doing at least one action in each category. You're probably familiar with this. Bronze certification requires completion of one equity toolkit, at least one action in our 12 categories, and 200 points. Silver, similar, but 3 equity toolkits and 400 points. You may have heard that we are working on gold level certification, which will be unveiled for the 2023 certification cycle. So that'll be really exciting. We unveiled climate leaders this year. It's our pilot year. It's an add-on to certification. So if you're certified or are seeking certification at bronze or silver or recertification, you've been before, you're eligible to apply for climate leaders. Our goal is to amplify and accelerate local actions on climate change. Many of Sustainable CT actions have a greenhouse gas impact or a resilience impact. We just wanted to kind of highlight some of those things to help towns as they work towards addressing the climate crisis. The timeline is same as the submission timeline. You do it the same way you submit for actions through our website. And you basically, we've selected a list of actions that are already in our roadmap, like managing woodlands and forests. And when you do that action, that'll get you points both towards certification and climate leaders. So of that list of high impact greenhouse gas actions or climate actions, you're looking for a total of 140 points. It coincides with your certification points. And of course, the points towards count towards both certification and climate leaders. And this is a pilot. We're going to be building it out and adding actions over time. Here's a quick list, which of course is also on our website, of the Sustainable CT actions that we've pulled out to give points towards climate leader designation. So you see 3.9.2, manage woodlands and open spaces, which is the subject today. We've had webinars on many of these other things, streamlining for solar permitting, and so on, EVs. We're having one coming up on waste in a few weeks. Yeah, on 14th of June, join us again for tracking solid waste generation in your community. And you can find the recordings for all the webinars we've had related specifically to climate leaders on our climate leader page of our website. And yeah, as always, feel free to email us or call for more information. You can reach us at info@sustainablect.org. So we want to both support you as you pursue climate leaders and get your feedback as you're looking at the program, and we're fine-tuning the pilot and evolving it over time. So that's climate leaders, and let's jump right into our presentation today. Danica Dorosky from Department of Energy and Environmental Protection is the Urban Forestry Coordinator, and she's joined by Dave Beers, who's the Service Forester for the Western District of Connecticut. And thank you both so much for joining us. I'll turn it over to you. If anyone in the audience wants to ask questions, please put them in the chat. We'll let Danica and Dave get through the presentation first, and then we'll open it up for questions. All right, all yours, Danica.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Lynn. So thanks all for participating today. Hopefully, you know, what I'm presenting is some useful information for you all that are interested in pursuing Action 3.9. Which, as Lynn said, is managing woodlands and urban forests. Also, I apologize, my screens are split, so I'm not going to be looking at you all. I'm looking at my slides. You know, just to give a little overview of how this presentation is going to go, I'm going to talk briefly about what Action 3.9 is. Hopefully, most of you kind of already have a sense because you're attending this session. I'm going to talk a little bit about why you should pursue Action 3.9. But the bulk of the presentation is really to direct you all towards resources that can help you to accomplish this action. And I'll just preface this presentation by letting you know that any one of sort of the sub-actions within 3.9 could be its own presentation. And so the purpose of today really is to familiarize you all with what, you know, resources, what information, what funding streams are out there to help you accomplish these actions, but not to go into detail about any one particular sub-action, because that would sort of be a presentation unto itself. So, you know, Action 3.9 is manage woodlands and urban forests. So Connecticut is one of the most forested states. Every municipality in Connecticut could apply for and try and obtain this action, and really should, because we are such a forested state. And so the idea is to plan and implement projects that will increase tree cover, enhance tree, forest and woodland health. And so in order to obtain this action, the first thing that you need is a forest advisory committee. Forest advisory committee could be a tree commission, it could be a conservation commission. It looks different depending on what sort of municipality you're in, whether you're in a really urban municipality or if you're in one of our more rural municipalities. And then once you have this forest advisory committee, basically an acting board that can help implement some of these actions, there are additional ways you can obtain points. I sort of summarized them here, but they're articulated in greater detail on the Sustainable CT website. But effectively, they're asking you to assess tree cover, to think about developing a tree ordinance, to conduct a management plan or a tree inventory, to establish a tree planting program, and to host educational events. And I'll just add that, you know, there's no order in which these need to be obtained. You know, you can get credit for doing any one of these actions. But in terms of just, you know, your own strategic planning and developing a robust urban forestry program, it makes sense to kind of go through this list in order to understand where tree cover is in your municipality, to think about how you can protect tree cover, and then to conduct some preliminary research that's going to tell you what that resource looks like, and then from there determine how appropriate tree planting program is, where those trees should get planted, what kind of educational events are going to be best fitted towards the forest in your community. So Again, you don't have to do these in order, but I think if you're thinking strategically about your own, development of a program, it makes sense to do these in this order. So why bother pursuing Action 3.9? Obviously, besides being interested in obtaining this climate leader designation, we're an incredibly forested state. Our forests provide us so many benefits, from wildlife to cleaning our air to cleaning our water, to mitigating climate change. I am the urban forestry coordinator, so I have a particular focus on our forests that are in close proximity to human development. And forests here, they have such an important impact on people's lives. They are directly linked to improved health outcomes. They increase property values. They help mitigate stormwater. They're just a really critical resource that we have in our towns. And they need management. They need investment. We can't just leave them and assume that they will be fine in the wake of everything else going on with regard to climate change and invasive pests and diseases and stuff like that. So, like I said, the bulk of this presentation is to refer you all to some resources. And so to that end, I'm going to be toggling back and forth between this presentation and a bunch of different websites. So just bear with me as I do that. But this presentation will be available afterwards, and all of the links that I click on are live. So you will have access to all of these links after the fact. So if you want to go back and explore a resource in greater depth, you'll have the materials to do that. So, I'm here in the capacity as the urban forestry coordinator. My role within the state is to work with municipalities, nonprofits, residents all over the state to help them grow and improve their urban and community forests. I'm also joined by my colleague Dave Beers, who's going to speak a little bit later in this presentation. And Dave is from our service forestry program, which is focused on providing technical advice and assistance to woodlot owners. And the service forestry program is particularly relevant because a lot of our municipalities own woodlots or town forests and can leverage the service forestry program to get points towards Action 3.9. And these are links to the websites for each of our programs. We just revamped our website, so it's very exciting. I think now this is our urban forestry page that directs you to different resources in our program. And this is the service forestry page, which also directs you to different services within that program. And I think it's much more user-friendly now. So, certainly that's something to explore. So, I'm going to go through now and I'm going to focus on each of these sort of different actions and talk about what resources are available to help you accomplish them. Obviously, you need to have a forest advisory committee, as the first step. And then once you've obtained it, there's these other sort of assessing tree cover, developing ordinance actions that you can follow. So that first action of assessing tree cover, I just want to talk about what tree cover assessments are, why you might want to pursue them, and familiarize you with some tools that we have to help you do these assessments in your municipality. So a tree assessment is essentially an assessment that tells you where trees are, where they aren't, where there's potential to plant trees or to promote more forest. And it also helps you understand the different types of tree cover that exist within your community. So maybe your more rural community, a lot of your forests are private lands, folks who own large acre properties, or maybe you're a more urban municipality like New Haven here, where a lot of your forest is in parkland, some of it is along the right of way. And so there's three resources that I'm going to show you that can help you to assess tree cover within your municipality. The first is this resource through the University of Vermont. And so this is one of the more in-depth sort of thorough assessments you can do. So this is a tree canopy assessment report for the city of New Haven. This was done by the University of Vermont. This was an expensive undertaking. I think New Haven, Bridgeport, Hartford, and I think maybe one of the COGs, I can't remember which one, have done these like large scale canopy assessments where they basically work with programmers to take high resolution aerial imagery, transpose that onto a municipality, and look at and distinguish between areas that have tree cover, which is indicated by this dark green here, areas that are more lawn or grassy areas, and distinguish that between other land cover types like water, buildings, impervious surface like pavement. And this enables them to do these assessments for looking at, okay, where is the existing UTC, which UTC stands for urban tree cover. So where are the existing trees? And then where is it possible to increase urban tree canopy cover? So where can we be planting more trees? And these sorts of assessments also allow you to look at tree cover by different land use types. Okay, so it allows you to assess how much of our tree canopy cover is on public lands, how much is on private lands, how much is in commercial areas. And so these are really helpful resources for allowing you to understand where tree cover is, where investment is needed, and where to direct resources in order to preserve and increase tree canopy cover within your municipality. I want to show this because this is sort of like the most rigorous, intensive approach to assessing tree canopy cover. It requires funding. You know, I'm not sure how much, but this is done at a spatial analyst lab at University of Vermont. And so it requires a significant investment on your end. Now, there's also some free resources that are not going to give you as in-depth information, but I'm going to show you how to use so that if you don't have the budget or aren't ready to invest in, you know, this more sort of robust, detailed canopy assessment, you can still be looking at what tree cover looks like as a starting point. So this second resource is through the University of Connecticut, their CLEAR website. Some of you may be familiar with this, particularly if you have GIS analysts or GIS specialists within your department. And the CLEAR program has lots of really great resources for spatial analysis, one of which is this high resolution land cover data set. And so this is for our entire state, and it distinguishes, again, between different land cover types. So I'm going to zoom into New Haven, but you could zoom into any municipality. You would just click it in this search box. You can zoom in, and then by clicking this tab on the right-hand side, you can see what the different land cover types are. So again, this is enabling you to look and see, where is the tree cover in New Haven? Okay, where is it not? We see this downtown area is mostly white, so that's indicating that this is mostly impervious surface. And it also, as we zoom in, allows us to look at some of the, what's tagged here as developed open space, which would be, I think, you know, an open grassland and something. Some of this is probably recreational, but some of this is also probably potential planting space. So this enables you to look at, again, where tree cover is in your municipality, where it isn't, where there's potential to increase it. And it also allows you to distinguish between different canopy cover types. So, you know, some of these forests, some of these big green splotches are parks. When we see them, you know, sort of on this grid pattern, we know that they're probably trees along the right of way or in people's backyards. These are cemeteries. So these are parcels where we have sort of landscape trees surrounded by mowed areas. So it enables you to start to classify different forest cover types within your municipality. And you know, that can be really, really useful as well. The last tree cover assessment tool I want to introduce you all to is a relatively new one that maybe some of you have familiarity with. It's a really exciting tool. This is a tool called the Tree Equity Score that was developed by American Forests, which is a nonprofit that's doing a lot of really great urban forestry work. And this tree equity score is unique because it not only assesses tree canopy cover, but it assesses tree canopy cover in the context of different socio-demographic and health factors. So it's not only telling you where you have trees and where you don't have trees, it's also telling you where do you not have trees, where you also have high populations of vulnerable people, lots of elderly people, children, people with health issues. It links in some data that tells you about temperature. So we know, for example, that tree canopy cover and temperature are very closely related. Where we have more tree canopy cover, we see lower temperatures. And so this particular tool links a lot of that together, and you can see here it's indicated with all these different layers. So they've basically taken all these different data sets and developed what they call a tree equity score. So for each municipality, you can click through and see that some neighborhoods, like this neighborhood of Westville and New Haven, has a 100% tree equity score, meaning it has high canopy cover and it has lower priority indicators, those priority indicators being people in poverty, people of color, people with health issues. And that's in comparison to a neighborhood down here like The Hill, which has a tree equity score of 56. Okay, so this could be a really useful tool, again, for helping your municipality understand what neighborhoods, what areas to prioritize for your programming. And you can play around with this tool and adjust the different filters. So for example, if you decide that you are interested in canopy cover, but maybe less interested in something like unemployment or health indices, you can adjust these to try and target certain neighborhoods. So it's a very customizable tool. And then of course you can also use this to just look at tree canopy cover. So if I go back to my filters and put everything back up at 100, I can click through the layers so that I'm just looking at tree canopy cover now. And it's telling me, again, this Westville neighborhood has 68% tree canopy cover. So, within that particular neighborhood, 68% of that neighborhood has tree cover over it. And that's in comparison to a neighborhood like Long Wharf here, where there's 3% tree canopy cover. So again, you have to contextualize these results. I, for example, live in New Haven. I know that Long Wharf, we have, I-95 coming through here. We have a lot of wetlands. There's a lot of reasons that we have lower tree canopy cover here. But in some of these neighborhoods, like the Hill neighborhood, which I'm pointing to right now, we have low canopy cover and we have really high populations of people in poverty, people of color, and really elevated temperatures. So this is a really helpful tool. The only other thing I'll say about this tool is that American Forest only developed it for larger municipalities. So they have a population size cutoff. So if you zoom out, you can see that not every municipality in Connecticut is going to be able to access this data. So, we have it for New Haven and neighboring Woodbridge, but Bethany, which is a more rural community right up here, you can see was left out of their analysis. So depending on where you are, this tool may or may not be useful for you, but it is a really helpful tool if you happen to be in one of the municipalities that was included in this analysis. So that's sort of a one-on-one on tree cover assessment tools. I think, again, each of these could be its own presentation. I'm happy to work with any of you if you're interested in taking a deeper dive into any of these tools to help you understand how to use the resource to its greatest potential. But these are really great tools that we have access to and that are a really good starting point for any forestry, urban forestry program in your municipality. So the next sort of action I want to talk about is developing a tree ordinance. So that's another one of these sub-actions that exists within Action 3.9. A tree ordinance, if you're not familiar with it, is basically a policy adopted by your municipality to maintain and protect trees. And so this can set standards for selecting trees, for planting trees, maintaining trees, and also for conserving trees. A few resources that I'll direct you to. Again, developing a tree ordinance is a very, it's very site specific. So there's no one size fits all tree ordinance. We have state statutes in Connecticut, for example, that dictate, okay, tree wardens have care and control over trees on public lands. You know, there's certain rules about removing trees on private property if it's not your property, for example. But a lot of municipalities in Connecticut have ordinances that allow them to more closely regulate or more closely to create more specific policies that meet the need of their particular neighborhood or their particular municipality. And so again, just to show you some resources that are available to this end, this is on our deep urban forestry page. We have a page on city scale urban forest management that has lots of great tools. And there's a specific section that talks about policies and ordinances. And so there's links to several different guidebooks that can help you kind of think about what would go into developing a tree ordinance. And then the other nice thing is we have links to examples from tree ordinances in some of our other municipalities. So for example, this is the Hartford's tree ordinance, and it shows you what an ordinance looks like. So it's, again, there's no one size fits all ordinance for, you know, all municipalities, but looking at some of these examples could help you get ideas for what a tree ordinance in your municipality might look like. And I'll also add that the tree ordinance is worth pursuing because it can help you obtain the sustainable CT designation. It can also help you obtain a designation through Arbor Day Foundation as a tree city. And so that's another, that's a national program that accredits different municipalities for their commitment to urban forestry. And having a tree ordinance is one of the requisites for that program as well. So having an ordinance could help you sort of accomplish both of those or obtain both of those accreditations. So again, you all will have access to this PowerPoint afterwards, and I'll let you click through and explore some of these resources when you have, you know, as they pertain to you. The next, you know, action I want to talk about, and I'm going to spend a little more time on this, is conducting a management plan and or a tree inventory. So if you're not familiar, a management plan is essentially a document that examines current conditions in a forest, and that could be at the parcel level or it could be at the city scale. And then it basically takes those current conditions and thinks about what future goals are and develops a series of actions or recommended actions to kind of get to that point. So a management plan is a really critical roadmap that you have to understand, you know, what your resource is, what you want it to look like, and what actions you need to get there. Like I said, this could be at the parcel level. So if you have a town-owned forest, you could have a management plan just for that parcel. And Dave Beers, my colleague in service forestry, is going to talk about that in just a few slides. Or it could be at the city scale. So this image is from the city of Hartford. The city of Hartford did a comprehensive tree canopy action plan that basically looked at all of the forests across the city and set some expectations for what their goals are for their canopy cover in their city and what actions they need to get there. And these management plans at the city scale often are dependent on tree inventory. So tree inventories is another sort of data collection tool that looks at the looks at the location, the species, the size, and the condition of existing trees in your municipality. So, for example, if you have lots of trees along the right of way, you could conduct a tree inventory like these people are doing here to measure those trees, record the species. Often you would do this with a certified arborist who's really qualified and trained in this sort of assessment and data collection. And that is super informative in terms of telling you, you know, do you have way too many maple trees? Are you running the risk of, you know, losing a lot of diversity? Is there a risk of pests coming through? You know, some of you may be familiar with emerald ash borer, which is an invasive pest that targets our ash trees. This is a really useful tool that helps you understand, are we at risk of losing a lot of our tree canopy cover? Are a lot of our trees really old and we need more young trees? It really sets the stage for understanding what those future investments should look like. So again, there's so much to talk about with management plans and inventory, so I'm just going to refer you to some resources and of course invite you all to reach out to myself and Dave or the other service foresters if this is something you're interested in pursuing. But here I have a link to examples of some inventories and management plans. So you can click on these different links and take a look at what this looks like. So this, for example, is New Haven's tree inventory. This is one of the more developed tools. A tree inventory can exist on Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be a big fancy map like this. But essentially what it's telling you is, where all of your trees are by mapping them out, and then what species and what size they are. And it's a really, really important tool. There's also links to some examples of management plans. So we have some at the city scale, like this one for Hartford, and then we also have some like this one for Stratford, which is just a management plan that was created for a town-owned parcel. So this is a tract of forest that is owned by the city, and they worked with certified foresters to create a management plan for this parcel. And that those types of management plans are something our service forestry team also is really knowledgeable about. If you choose to pursue a tree inventory or a management plan, we have a funding program at DEP that's specifically dedicated to funding those types of projects. It's called the America the Beautiful Grant Program. There's a link here to the specifics of that grant program, but you can get up to $20,000 to help fund a management plan or a tree inventory in your municipality. And there will be another deadline coming up this winter for that particular grant program. And then finally, the service forestry program works closely with towns on if there's town-owned parcels that they want management recommendations for. So I'm going to pass it off to Dave for the next few slides to talk about what a visit with a service forester might look like for a town-owned parcel.
Thanks, Danica. And that tree equity tool that you showed, that's pretty awesome. I've never seen that before. Can you hear me? Good. Okay. So there's three of us in Connecticut that do service forestry, which is basically state taxpayer supported technical forestry assistance for municipal and private landowners. I cover Litchfield County, Fairfield County, and a few towns in Hartford County, and I'll say what they are just in case you're on this call. Heartland, Granby, Suffield, East Granby, Canton, Simsbury, Burlington, and Bristol. And then my colleague, Andrea Urbano, covers the remainder of Hartford County, Middlesex County, and New Haven County. And then Frank Servo is over in the east covering Windham County, Talon County, and New London County. And so we visit forested parcels, both town and privately owned, and provide some information to landowners about what they have. I typically walk the parcel with the landowner, whether that be a town or private. So you see in this picture in a visit to the Westport Community Gardens at Long Lots Elementary School, I walked the parcel with Lou here, who is in charge of the community gardens, and he's there holding a tree measuring stick, and he was helping me measure some trees. And then after the visit, we provide a report and maps about the property, and then provide some recommended next steps for that property. I'll get into Westport a little bit more soon, but just to give you an idea of what I've done since I started doing this a year and a half ago is so in addition to Westport, I think I've done like 10 property visits and 10 reports for the town of Weston. They own a lot of land, and they really took advantage of our services. And it's free. We don't charge either private landowners or town landowners any charge for this. For private landowners, you do need at least 10 forested acres at the moment. That might change. For town-owned land, you only need an acre, which is a pretty low bar. And we're happy to do anything over an acre. Come and take a look at it, and it can be multiple parcels. You know, get more bang for your buck and have us look at a whole bunch of stuff when we come and do a visit is always good. So I did a forested parcel that was part of a community golf course in Norwalk. I did the town transfer station in the town of Norfolk, which was like 300 acres. I think in Weston I did like at least 300 acres on those 10 properties. And then in Winstead, they had me look at their water. They own their own watershed for their own water supply, and that was 2,000 acres. I couldn't take the time to look at all 2,000 acres, but we did spend a really long day with the water department manager looking at a huge amount of it, and I helped them prepare an RFP to contract out a private forester to do work on the property. So for this Weston example, or Westport property example, this property, the original call was because of invasive species. So on this property, they had proliferation of burning bush, multiflora rose, barberry, tree of heaven, Norway maple, mugwort, bittersweet, and mile-a-minute vine. The place is a mess as far as invasives go. And so we, Danica, you want to go to the next slide? So there's a map of the property, which if you have us visit your properties, we'll make you a nice map like that with an air photo and the features mapped out. So the lower right-hand side, 2 acres, was the original area they wanted me to look at, and that's the one that had the majority of the invasives. And it's basically so full of invasives that the recommendations were to basically do a lot of work to try to eradicate most of the invasives, and then just do a lot of planting to refill in with native shrubs, ground cover, and trees. And they're going to be working with, I think they might be working with Danica in the future, and also with the Aspetuck Land Trust on that project. But then Lou really had no idea that the school had another 6 acres to the west of the school that no one ever visits. And we took a walk back there. I don't think anyone ever takes a walk back there. And it was a beautiful mature forest. While it did have invasives, it wasn't nearly as overrun. Most of the tree canopy was native. Most of the overstory tree canopy was native. And there, I think we have a really good chance, without a huge amount of effort, to make it healthier by cutting the bittersweet vines, the tree of heaven saplings, and the burning bushes, and then right after cutting them, dabbing their freshly cut stumps with that. On the upper left-hand picture there is the buckthorn blaster, which is like a sort of like a letter dampener thing. It's really cool. So all this is going to be done with volunteers. Maybe not the brush saw part, but loppers, and then some contractors to do more heavy equipment work to help get this forest more native and healthier, and actually have people realize that the school has a really nice forest that the kids. I don't think the kids ever go there either. And for this part of the world, it's really densely developed. 6 acres of mature, fairly healthy forest is kind of a jewel that no one knew about. And the same thing happened with the Norfolk Land Trust. They had no clue that they had all this woods out behind what used to be the town dump, and now they're doing a pollinator garden. They're going to look into hiring a private forester to make some revenue off of selling timber. So So, I mean, once you look at your grand list, you may not realize that you actually have some land out there that people have forgotten about. And as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to visit every town forest every town-owned forested parcel in my district within the next 2 years would be great. So please call us up. Do I have another slide?
Cool.
Or is that it?
No, that's it. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah,
Okay.
so please
So
don't
just-
hesitate to give us a call.
Cool. And okay, so just a couple more slides here. Obviously, I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that you can do any one of these actions at any point in time and receive points for them, but there is sort of a logical sequence of doing a tree canopy cover assessment, then following up with some sort of inventory and management plan, and then once you know where the greatest need is, establishing a tree planting program. So you can receive points for establishing a tree planting program. I think the most successful tree planting programs are based on information about where there's a need for trees, and also knowing what species are needed. And that's where something like an inventory really comes in handy, because it helps you make sure that you're not overplanting any one species, that you're not going to make your particular municipality more vulnerable to invasive pests and diseases in the future. And so, at that point, you could think about, promoting some sort of tree planting program. I think another key component to any tree planting is that there needs to be a strong community component. So you want to be engaging your community where these trees are going in. I've done a lot of work throughout my career and found that trees planted where people don't really want them tend to not do really well. And part of that is because trees need long-term stewardship. So any trees that are planted really need to have a stewardship component or a stewardship plan to make sure that they're able to survive and grow and be healthy and provide all of the benefits that we expect them to provide. So again, if you're interested in developing a tree planting program, please reach out to me. I would love to talk about what that might look like in your municipality. But for the purposes of this presentation, I'm just going to highlight some funding opportunities that we have, again, at the state level to fund tree planting programs. So these are 4 different grant programs. There's links to each one of them, so I'm not going to click through them right now for the sake of time, because I want to leave some time for questions. But basically, there's 4 different grant programs that you all can pursue that can fund tree planting. You'll notice they differ in the amount of funding that's available, and also in the target work area. So you can see, one of our big initiatives at Department of Energy and Environmental Protection is to invest in, historically underserved neighborhoods. And so to that end, a lot of these grant programs are specifically looking to fund tree planting in environmental justice areas. And so this is where that tree equity score that I showed you earlier can really come into handy, because it can help you to identify areas within your municipality that are in the greatest need of tree planting investment, and make a really compelling case for that in any grant application that you submit. So the last action that you can get points for within Action 3.9 is by hosting educational events. Educational events can be almost anything, but I think the most impactful ones are ones that are going to promote really good stewardship and forest management practices amongst private landowners or community members. So if you're in a more urban area, it might just have to do with stewardship and outreach. And if you're in a more rural area, it might mean reaching out to landowners and letting them know about some of the resources that are available to assist landowners in caring for and managing the forest on their property. So again, I'm going to pass it off to Dave for this slide. This just has a quick, again, links to a bunch of different resources, but all of these are programs that are available to private landowners. So these are not programs that you as a municipality would apply to, but they are programs that landowners within your municipality might find really useful and that are really important for preserving and managing forest land on private property. So I'm going to let Dave just give a kind of brief overview of what these 4 different programs are. And again, these are all links, so you can, explore all of these in greater depth after the presentation.
Oh yeah, I had 2 questions in the chat. So the little plastic container that we were using to paint the stumps of invasives is called Buckthorn Blaster, and it's sold exclusively by the North American Invasive Species Management Association, NAISMA.org is where you would go to get that. And then we were just using like over-the-counter Roundup. Public Act 490. So you're probably all familiar with that unless you're coming from a super urban area. So if you own more than 25 acres of forest land, you can put your land into Public Act 490 to save on property taxes. There is a 10-year penalty phase for taking it out of that program after you put it in. And it is there to encourage open space. There's also a farmland and open space classification, which the forest land classification is supervised by the state. The open space and farmland classification are supervised by each town, and they sort of set their own standards for farmland and open space. And not every town offers open space. And I can just say that this act is extremely important to maintaining open space in the state. Without it, taxes can get prohibitively high to hold on to large parcels of land. So even though your assessor might disagree with you, I would encourage you to encourage Public Act 490. Believe it or not, there's people out there who are not in it because they aren't aware of it, aware that they're eligible for it. Forest Legacy is a program, another program to encourage open space, and that's a federal program that provides funds for conservation easements. It's usually really large properties. If you're interested in that, contact one of us service foresters, and we can set people up with how to apply for that. NRCS Equip is a cost share program to encourage good stewardship on private land. Pretty much every landowner I talk to, I encourage them to pursue NRCS Equip grant money for whatever they want to do. They may not get it. There's a limited amount of funds each year, but it's a great program for the landowners in your town, and the minimum requirement is 10 acres of forest. Securing Northeast Forest Carbon Program is new. It's basically a new program to encourage people to grow trees to secure carbon. I don't know if they do anything with municipalities as of yet, but contact us because Andrea would be able to answer any questions about that better than me. Does that cover it for you, Danica?
That's perfect. And my last slide is just contact information for everyone. So Dave mentioned our colleague, Andrea Urbano. She's the Central District Service Forester. So if you are in a municipality in the Central District, you might want to reach out to her. Or if you're interested in getting more information about PA 490 or the Securing Northeast Forest Urban, she's your contact for that. And I know, for example, she has given presentations on like PA 490 that, you know, she could share information with you if you're interested in hosting an educational event for landowners in your municipality about that particular program. And then there's my contact information, Dave, who you met, and then Frank Servo, who is our Eastern District Service Forester. And if you click the link to the Service Forestry program, you'll see a map that tells you exactly what each of these districts encompassed. I know Dave kind of gave an overview, but if you forget and you want to go back and figure out who you should get in touch with. So, all that to say, I hope this wasn't overwhelming. Rather, I hope it was encouraging that it's really attainable to achieve these actions. We have lots and lots of resources available. I know I outlined many different tools, but I think, it's up to you all to decide what makes sense for your town, for your city. And in the meantime, I hope that you will reach out to myself and the service forestry team if you're thinking about pursuing this action and you want any guidance in how to go about this. So I think with that, we have 10 minutes for questions. I think we addressed most things in the chat, but if folks have questions they want to voice out loud, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, excellent, Danica. And Dave, thank you so much. This is really informative. How about you take the screen share off so we can see folks, and Torin will send a follow-up with the recording link and the PowerPoint with the hyperlinks to the resources, so you'll have all that as well as the contact information. So feel free to come on video if you'd like, and just unmute if you have a question or a comment. And I know we have some towns like Jack and Hartford who've done amazing things already. If there are stories you want to share that would help other towns. Here we are.
I would share what we have here in Hartford, and we are very indebted to Deep for the assistance we've had from Danica and from her predecessor since we really started getting serious about this about 15 years ago. It's a long haul. There's a lot of stuff to do and a lot of things to figure out. I would invite you all to take a look at that Canopy action plan that Danica referred to. It's a 330-page document. It includes one of those canopy assessments from University of Vermont. It includes an American forest study. It includes a tree inventory that was done by Davy Resource Group. We're we're still kind of discovering all the bits and pieces in there, and we're working on how to implement them. And the thing we've been focused on recently, and we will soon have a wonderful sustainability plan coming out for a 130-acre parcel within our largest park, Keeney Park. It's going to be unveiled on June 1st at our Tree Advisory Commission meeting. We're really just beginning to figure out what we should be doing about forested tracts within the city. And I just started making an informal list, and there's like 30 plus parcels within our city, and there are all kinds of different ownership and what have you. It's we don't have any shortage of things to do.
So Jack, how did you go about getting like the resources, like for the plan and some of the other work? Did you tap into a lot of these grants, Danica?
Not so much. Most of the stuff we do costs more than you can get from those grants. And I actually am not, was not privy to where the money came from for the Canopy action plan. That was done by our Office of Sustainability, and they came up with the money from various sources. We have been, since our first Canopy survey that was done in 2007, we have been twisting the arms of the mayors and the council members and so forth, and we have managed to get them to understand that trees and forest areas are infrastructure, they're not decoration, and that maintaining and expanding them are critical to the health of the city. And so this year in our city budget, the budget for tree planting and maintenance is $1.2 million. And we're looking to go back to the University of Vermont for an update on our canopy assessment. And by the way, that'll cost us about $22,000. We think we will be able to get it out of the city budget, but we may also be looking at one of those grant programs to support it. But you get started and you keep escalating. This is serious business, and you need to convince your city fathers and mothers that it is serious and that they need to think about funding it as much as they think about filling potholes and improving playscapes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure.
Anyone else have questions or stories to share from things in your town?
I'd like to call on Sharon if she would like to share about what we've been doing in Bloomfield. Sharon has been the leader of some fantastic work that our tree committee have done. So if she'd like to speak, I don't know if she's up for it, but I just want to give a shout out for what Bloomfield's been doing, and I think she should speak to it. If Sharon, you're up for it?
Stephanie, this is David, man.
Oh, David, okay.
Sharon's out planting right now, but I'm listening in and taking notes. But you can represent the program that we put together in Bloomfield if you like. It's basically a tree planting plan for which we've secured grants and so forth, and it's being completed by citizens of the town with the assistance of the Department of Public Works. And we've had 3 grant programs. We're now up to about 80 trees, which is a small fraction of the numbers that are required. But our concern is get started now. We see all the tree planting requirements of canopy assessments and ordinances and plans and so forth. And it's really daunting for a town of our size to consider that, given the other political needs within the town. So we've decided, well, let's get started in planting the trees and see what happens. Let's move along and see if we can develop a constituency and more of a need for it. So that's basically all I would put in there. But Stephanie, you have more information. Go ahead, please, and fill in where I left out. And
I think you I think you're under presenting what the group has been doing. I mean, right from starting the tree subcommittee to our environmental committee. I think that's almost 1.5 years old, isn't it, David? And so it's a small group of individuals, volunteers, started the committee. They meet on a monthly basis. They come up with their priorities. Within this 1.5 years, they've not only secured some grants, but have a real plan outlined as to how to move forward with planting. We've done, collectively, we've done a lot of outreach programming and educational ones, walks on land trusts, and including the tree planting. So, I feel like Bloomfield's really, from the leadership of this small group, has done phenomenal work already. And we have a long way to go, as we all know. But yeah, I think I just wanted to share what they've done.
One other comment, if I can say, the Trees for Bloomfield, which started here 1.5 years ago, is being replicated in Suffield, East Granby, and soon to be Windsor. So this is a growing effort that we're seeing. Thank you.
And I've only been in my position for a short time, but Bloomfield, in my short time, has been awarded 2 of those 4 grants that I highlighted on that funding page. So one of the smaller grants, and then one of the much larger block grants.
Excellent. And I'll just chime in with Sustainable CT's Community Match Fund, which some of you may know about, which pairs crowdfunding with dollar-for-dollar matches from Sustainable CT. We've had a lot of tree planting projects, and I just want to kind of reiterate the importance that Danica made on like kind of doing an inventory and a planning and ensuring there's going to be maintenance of these trees before you jump into it. But the community match fund could be used for any of that. And we have a bunch of examples of projects on our website. Torrance put it in the chat if you want to find out more, and we can happy to talk over project ideas you might have. Let's see, we've got 1 minute to the top of the hour. Any other questions or things people would like to share?
I have a quick question. So I'm on the East Haddam Land Trust as well, and part of what we're talking about is forest management recently, and more on the thinning trees, but we're worried about the perception from the community about thinning, because usually trees being taken down is seen as a negative impact. So do you have any advice on how to educate the community about the thinning process and how it's actually advantageous for, ecosystems and forest management?
Dave, I'll let you take that if you don't mind.
Yeah, so Nicole, do you have a forester engaged?
I believe that, yes, we had a forester I don't recall her name off the top of my head, come out and look at some of the parcels and suggested that they be thinned. She believe works in the eastern portion of the state.
Okay, well, so I would suggest hiring a private forester to start working on that, and sort of having them take the lead on public outreach. Probably a good first step would be to have a walk with them and your committee to take a look at what you're thinking about doing. But even before that, you probably want to. This is for the land trust or for the town?
It would be land trust.
Land trust. Okay. Yeah, you might want to look into getting an EQUIP grant to do a forest stewardship plan before you jump right into a thinning. And I think East Haddam would be, you're in Middlesex County?
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be Andrea. So if you haven't already talked to Andrea, you should talk to her and she can guide you towards getting an EQUIP grant if you want to do that. But I mean, it's up to you. If you want to jump right into a thinning, you could also do that. But I'd recommend getting a full forest inventory and stewardship plan written up and sharing that with the public before you jump right into doing a thinning.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just chime in. I was on a forest walk this weekend and a similar question came up, and the forester said, the messaging of like, we're doing work to improve the forest or improve habitat or whatever, rather than we're thinning. So just start with the positive. You're creating a benefit for the community and the forest. Could be a way to approach it.
Positive things always is better. Yes.
All right. So I think that looks like all the questions. You have contact information for Danica and Dave and the other service foresters on that slide that'll be coming to you. This was incredible amounts of information and resources and really well packaged. So thank you so much, Danica and Dave, for putting this together and sharing, and for those of you who shared questions and stories. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us at Sustainable CT with anything related to Action 3.9 or certification or climate leaders or anything like that. And obviously our partners at DEEP for supporting all this great work. Final comments, Danica or Dave?
No, I actually have to jump off, but I hope you all will reach out to me. I'd love to continue the conversation.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.